From the outset, the aim of our GTR was to have supercar performance on a modest budget that looks fairly factory and, like any good supercar, can be driven on the road or the track in comfort. We've upgraded the power, brakes and tyres, but now the suspension was letting the car down. The first step in modifying a car's suspension is usually coilovers. Our car came with some, but being designed and fitted in Japan, they were too stiff for the car on Australian roads. Against many beliefs, stiffer might feel faster, but isn't always. Having the right spring rate and dampening allows the car to squat and dive for better traction and braking, and absorbs mid-corner bumps to keep the car planted. Stiff cars are not only uncomfortable, but generally handle worse on the road. The answer was Tein coilovers from Fulcrum Suspension. Fulcrum Suspension are the official Tein distributor in Australia, but don't just import them then ship them out. They work with Tein and their in-house engineers to have the product suited to Australian conditions. To find your local dealer, head to the website tein.com.au. The Tein Super Street is designed for performance road use and some weekend track work. Let's face it, you can't have one that's perfect at both, but you can get a very good compromise. The front and rear strut tops use reinforced rubber and the body is double powder coated. Height is adjustable through the spring perch only with provided ring spanners, and the range of adjustment is within the legal range, stopping people from excessively lowering their car. There is 16 levels of dampening force adjustment via the turn knob or via the EDFC, and the spring rates are 5 kg front and 4 kg rear. This seems soft in comparison to a lot of other coilovers, and it is, but it's made to suit the car and application. The new Tein EDFC control unit is much more advanced than the previous model. Wireless technology makes wiring easier, and it now has GPS and G-force sensors inside, which provide input for the variable damper rates based on how hard and fast you're driving. We took the car to authorised Tein and Superpro dealer and installer, Sydney Suspension in Penrith. Their premises are huge and their workshop impressive. First step is to measure the height of the car the way it is before removing the current coilovers. Although a high quality brand, they were way too stiff for Australian roads and I simply didn't like them. We also decided to install some Tein rose jointed and adjustable caster rods. The spherical bearing makes for better steering feedback and removes suspension slop under hard cornering and braking. It has a dust cover and easily adjustable. Coilovers are pretty straightforward to install. Undo some bolts and out they come. The EDFC motors require a different insert into the top of the coilover, which is easier to install outside the car. Once they are all in, the process of setting the right height begins. Lower, measure, raise, adjust, repeat. Bear in mind, the car might settle over a few days. The final step is the wheel alignment. Being lowered with factory arms means we couldn't get the camber settings where we wanted them, but we will be changing them later with Superpro bushers. And the final step, a test drive to try them out. When people modify their suspension, the first thing that comes to mind is coilovers, and many just leave it at that. But there is much more to making your car handle better. In fact, there are many items that will make your car handle better than just coilovers will, and just installing coilovers can reveal shortcomings in other areas. The next step with suspension is sway bars and replacing bushers in your suspension arms or replacing them completely with aftermarket arms. Aftermarket arms are generally of a spherical bearing design and are suited to track use as they are harsh on a road car and wear out quickly. We decided to opt for Superpro poly bushings. They are constructed from their own formula of polyurethane and are much more durable and resilient than factory rubber bushers, removing suspension play but absorbing enough noise, vibration and harshness to make them suitable for road use. They have a high tear strength and are resistant to oils and general road grime. Corrosion-resistant Superalloy inserts are strong and lightweight, and offset bushers add adjustment to suspension arms. Another thing about installing new bushers is that most older cars have worn out ones, so the benefits are much more noticeable. We elected to get the entire handling kit for the GTR, replacing every single bush in every single arm and in the rear knuckles and steering rack, and also the new upgraded sway bars. Sway bars link the left and right suspension together and reduce body roll based on the strength of the bar, usually determined by diameter. The Superpro roll control sway bars are stiffer than factory and also adjustable. They also come with new Superpro mounting bushers, and we also installed upgraded links. We took the car to Sydney Suspension in Penrith, a Superpro official dealer, to get everything installed. Their massive facility has the ability to do anything. First step is to remove all of the arms that are having new bushers installed, press out the old bushers, and simply press in the new ones. The guys from Sydney Suspension also clean up and paint the arms to give the end product a new look as well as feel. Some bushers, such as the rear knuckles, can be pressed out and in without removing them from the car, making the job easier. Sway bars in a GTR are pretty straightforward, with everything hanging underneath. With everything in, it was onto the laser wheel alignment machine. Wheel alignment is very important to how the car drives, and also important to the way you drive. Being a street car, we set it up to be a little bit easier and stable to drive, rather than aggressive in the front like we would on a track car. The main thing for us was to try and increase negative camber in the front while decrease it in the rear. Now it's time for a test drive and see how it all goes. The first chance we had to try out the new suspension was at Sydney Power Play at Sydney Motorsport Park. The soft rear spring rates enabled the car to squat, put its power down and record 0 to 100 times consistently under 3.5 seconds. Not bad for a 350 kilowatt GTR that's manually shifted on street tyres and over 20 years old. Okay, now considering our R32 GTR has been built as a street car, the most important test for the Tein Super Street Coilovers and the other suspension modifications is how well it drives on public roads. Because let's face it, Sydney roads are terrible, so if it can survive this, it can survive anything. Now, first impressions, the Tein Super Streets are as good or better than I ever remembered them to be when they were in my last S14. These things, they're amazing. If you were to drive a standard 32 GTR, then drive this car, you would actually think that this is the standard suspension and that the standard car had broken old suspension. Not only are they probably maybe slightly harder than factory suspension, but they absorb the bumps a lot better, they don't pogo. It really is amazing just how good a modified GTR can be on a public road. I drive around with the car set to full soft for obvious reasons. It's the most comfortable way to drive the thing. But to be honest, I think full soft is the setting that you would probably use for all conditions on the road. With aftermarket sway bars and bushers, this car doesn't get any body roll, so we don't need to stiffen it up to stop that. I could go on for hours about how good this car is to drive on public roads, but there really is no point. It drives better than a factory GTR on public roads. It is more comfortable than any factory GTR I've ever driven, and to be honest, I've driven brand new cars that are harsher on the road than this is and that can't absorb the bumps as well as this car can. That's really it. I guess the next question is, what are they like when I'm driving through my favourite bit of twisties, and what are they going to be like at the track? Turn-in is phenomenal. Power out, well, it's a GTR on 123s. Holy crap. And now that the brakes work, I have a lot more confidence here than I used to. Woo-hoo-hoo! I'm actually scared now to try and find... Hello, camera. Hello. Sorry about that. The G-force on the car was a little bit too much for you, wasn't it? Well, I've given the car 2 hits through the Nasho and my brain is a little bit fried at the moment because the speed this car can carry is a bit silly. It's a very, very fast car. No more difficult to drive at this pace as what it used to be. In fact, it's easier to drive fast. But what's scary now is when you think you're reaching the limit of the tyre, but you're not. Finding the limits in this thing is going to be very difficult. Even that big giant bump, my car used to get airborne over that with the old coilovers, but now, don't get me wrong, it was a big jump, but I could do it. This is so different to the last time I came here on the old coilovers. The old coilovers were mega stiff. It used to jump and bump and buck and just do everything wrong. Now with these super streets, it absorbs the bumps. I'm not scared to start letting on the power mid-corner and hit one. It's unbelievable. Well, after only 5 minutes in the car through the national park, all I'm going to say is this thing is a monster. It already had the power, it already had the brakes, it had the tyres. Now it's got the suspension. It all matches. This really is one of the best combos I've driven. The suspension is nice and soft and compliant at low speed for daily driving, but stiff enough and compliant enough at high speed to absorb all the bumps, giving you good grip, especially under brakes and under power out. The sway bars are stopping the body roll, and the bushes have made it feel as tight as a brand new car. This thing is an absolute weapon. There isn't enough space here to even exploit it at its full potential, and in fact, if I drive the car at 100%, I couldn't do it on the road. You can't. It is phenomenal. I don't know how to make this car any better on the road when it comes to the suspension. All up though, if you want to put a coilover in your car that makes for a great daily driver and then hit the Nasho and go flat out, the Tein Super Street for me is it. I've driven on plenty of others, but none have come close to this. It is phenomenal.